lifestyle plays in your health. Tonight, On Call with the Prairie Doc. Funding for On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided in part by
Avera is a proud sponsor of On Call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Larson Manufacturing is proud to support On Call Television as it continues to open doors for important medical information. And by the South Dakota Foundation for Medical Care, the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for South Dakota. Additional funding is provided by Aberdeen Asthma and Allergy, Brookings Health System, Dr. Mark Bubach with Dakota Allergy and Asthma, Dakota Care, Dakota Dermatology, the Orthopedic Institute, Physicians Care Sanford Clinic Community Service Committee, and Swiftel Communications. Closed captioning for On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided by the generous support of Avera, Brookings Health System, and Fishback Financial Corporation. Do you smoke? Do you exercise, attend educational seminars, visit your doctor regularly? The type of lifestyle you live can have a profound effect on your overall health. The importance of your lifestyle. We are on call with the Prairie Doc.
Good evening and welcome to On Call with the Prairie Doc. In a nation where 1 in 3 Americans is overweight or obese, or 1 in 4 adults is a current smoker, the decisions we make each day have a significant impact on the quality of our lives. Our lifestyle choices reach beyond hitting the gym. They include our social life, our ability to make and maintain friendships, our ability to be active in learning new things. Add that to the way we drive, how much we sleep, and preventive care such as immunizations and dental care. These choices have never been more important. Tonight we discuss choices that influence our health, choices that you make. And to help me with this particular topic, this difficult topic, I'm joined by Dr. Kevin Bjordahl of the Avera Medical Group in Millbank and Dr. Philip Meyer of the Avera Medical Group in Pierre. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your life, Kevin. You're from where originally?
I'm from De Smet.
Oh, yeah?
Great.
Oh, I knew
little
that.
town on the prairie, yeah. How about that?
How about that? And you're where now?
I'm in Millbank, South Dakota.
How many other
Northeast.
doctors are practicing in
There's
Millbank?
just 3 right now. We just retired a couple, so we're down to 4 total.
4 total, and any FP or nurse practitioners or
Oh, yeah, we have
PAs?
4 or 5.
To help you with the daily practice. So putting it all together, there's 8 or 9 people practicing there.
Yes.
So you have somebody to share calls.
Some of them are out in outreach clinics too, but they work part-time in Millbank also.
And where'd you train? What's your experience?
I went to school at the University of South Dakota, and at that time it was University of South Dakota School of Medicine, now Sanford. And I did family medicine residency in Iowa.
Oh, and then you came back to...
I came to Webster then, which is also up in the northeast part of South Dakota, and I was there for 10.5 years and then moved down the road to Millbank. So
a few more people
Still
to
there.
share call with is
Right.
what I'm guessing is why you made that. I know when you
Part
made
of it.
that move, it was a hard move for you. Phil, you're from Pierre. You're originally from you're a Nebraska boy, aren't you? One of those.
No, actually, I'm originally from Winter, South Dakota.
Oh, you're a Winter person.
Right.
Oh, but your partners are from. You got a bunch of partners from.
And I trained in Nebraska is the confusion.
Oh, that's it. And you're an internist.
Right, a general internal medicine.
Where Kevin's a family physician, you're an internist.
Right.
And you trained in Nebraska in internal medicine?
I did at the University of Nebraska.
In Omaha.
In Omaha, right.
Right, and then you came to Pierre?
I came to Pierre in 1997 as my first place of practice, and I've been there ever since.
You've been stuck in Pierre.
Well, can't get away.
That's a great place. You know, both of your hometowns are famous for sports and hunting and outdoor fishing and all sorts of great things. Is that any part of the reason why you're both there?
Absolutely.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
So, well, this is a pre-recorded show, but feel free to join us on Facebook or Twitter to continue the importance of lifestyle conversation. Give us your feedback, but your phone calls tonight, we can't hear them. We know them in your heart, but we can't hear them. We're going to talk about lifestyle choices, and that's a tough topic because all of us, the three of us, have tried to help people make right choices. Kevin, what's your comment about lifestyle choices in general?
Well, health is it's a combination of nature and nurture. It's our social and, it's made up mainly by our social and economic environment, our physical environment, and then our personal environment too, our health habits and our genetics. You can't escape that sometimes.
Yeah.
But lifestyle has a lot to do. Our choices in life and how we live have a lot to do with determining our health too.
Right. Your comments?
I would agree with that completely. Outside of pharmaceutical methods of treatment, the single most important thing a person can do to further their own health is manage their own lifestyle.
Right.
More fundamental than the pharmaceuticals we prescribe, and really is an integral part of their whole therapy.
Yeah. Let me just say that again in another way. It's more important than the pills that we take.
No question.
Just what kind of lifestyle we make for ourselves. So some people say diet, some people say spiritual scenarios, some people say athletics and exercise programs. There's a lot of different, some say, it's just avoidance of smoke. What would you say is the most important of them all, Phil?
I would have to favor physical activity as being probably the single most important lifestyle facet that makes the most difference in a person's longevity and overall health. We live in a mechanized, primarily sedentary society, and if discipline ourselves to a degree of physical activity can somewhat negate all of the health hazards that come with that.
Boy, I am in complete agreement with you, but you have a different opinion, right, Kevin?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mostly agree with that. There are some things that also determine our health that are hard to measure. You alluded to spirituality and social networking. People who have good social support are healthier. People who have a good attitude in life and are happy are healthier and live longer. Some of those things are hard to measure. People who have a better economic standing tend to live longer and be healthier. People who are more educated live longer and healthier. Some of those things you may or may not be able to help, but...
Yeah, and it may be that you're raised in a family that doesn't have the resources. You maybe have, this is the dice that was thrown at you. Does it mean that you can't pull yourself out of that and bring yourself into a level of wellness without those resources? It's not, they say something like 40% of it has to do with genes and 20% has to do with the roll of the dice, and the rest of it is what you decide. And but there are others who say it isn't. You don't really decide. You're caught. You're just a function of your environment. I read a book that just said that. You're just caught. You can't. Very, very few real choices.
I've heard those statistics before. I didn't remember what the ratios were, and I don't know if anybody could ever prove that.
That's not proven.
Right.
Yeah.
But in being in practice for most of 30 years, I think choices and lifestyles do have a huge impact on our lives. I think there would be much less disease and conditions for us to treat and take care of if people lived healthy. If people did half of what's recommended and lived a good lifestyle, there'd be a lot less for Phil and I to do.
Right.
I think that's true, and I think some of the generations before us have shown us that. If you have any patients that are in their late 80s and early 90s, it never ceases to amaze me how well some people can be at that age, given the natural process of aging.
Right. Now, I wanted to throw this. One other environmental thing is vaccinations. There's a trend in our country that's saying vaccinations are hooey, and that they're dangerous, and they don't benefit the patient enough to do it, and you don't want to hurt your kids, and so they're holding off on the vaccinations. I just throw that at either one of you. Any comments?
You know, there's no proof that any of the traditional vaccines that we've been giving to our children for generations or for decades are harmful. You know, the whole autism theory was completely debunked several years ago. And immunization really is a natural approach. It's an antibody formed from the actual microorganism.
Yeah.
And we're just administering it to you instead of you getting the disease in an attenuated fashion so you don't get ill.
Yeah. So.
I agree. I hate to sound like an old guy, but back when you and I were in training, we used to see things like meningitis in kids fairly often, and lots of ear infections and pneumonias and things like that. And you don't even see some of the more common things as often anymore because of vaccinations. So, granted, infants and young children get a lot of vaccines. They seem like a pincushion sometimes, but they end up healthier. I really believe that.
Yeah, exposed without having to be sick. Well, the whole issue about measles is a thing that's been happening right now. At the end of 2014, 6 cases of measles were diagnosed in the Mitchell area, and that number continues to grow. Luckily, the physician who had never seen a case in his 14 years of practice knew what to look for.
This family came in with a child that they were concerned about that may have the flu, because they were told that it could be the flu. So they wanted to get flu testing for. And when they came in, I noticed the rash on the child, and it was markedly atypical for influenza. Often doesn't cause a rash. So that led to other questions, and they were telling me, and I asked them how the rash started, and it seemed like it started on the head and kind of went down, and that was kind of a red flag. And then also she had kind of inflamed red eyes. That was kind of a red flag as well. So it kind of heightened my awareness, because when you get that group of symptoms, then you start looking for other things. And then we were able to actually see a really cool feature of these complex spots that you get in the inside of your mucosa. And those combination of symptoms is almost diagnostic, literally, of measles. And I hadn't seen a set of measles in my whole career. And I've been practicing for 14 years and never seen a case. I mean, you read about it, you hear about it, but it's not a common thing, because we thought immunizations had kind of wiped us out, but we're starting to see a little surge of that again. Ended up calling the state, and they got involved. Our nurses there ended up getting the whole family together and making sure that the family was aware of the severity of the illness and how contagious it is, and the dangers to pregnant women, children, etc. They were able to bring them in and get testing for the rest of the family. But we were able to send the child home, and because there's not much you can do for measles. It's kind of a watch and wait kind of thing, other than prevent it from happening from the start. That's the only thing you can really do. This particular group had a large number in their group that didn't believe in immunizations, which led to kind of a dangerous mix of symptoms, because you have a child who had measles clinically. I didn't have any laboratory testing to confirm it at that time, but clinically definitely had it. I talked with the family about why they didn't immunize, because as soon as I saw it, I said, this kid must not be immunized. And I asked them, and they said, no, we don't believe in it. And I just approached this subject because we do see that every once in a while. It's not a common thing, but we do see it. And their reason was because of this factitious risk of autism with it. And they were not aware of actually the data that does not support that at all. And that was kind of very unethical data that led to that. But somehow it got, people found out about it, and some people only heard half the story. And unfortunately, these people only heard, part of the story, and they didn't hear actually what that stuff came from. This mom in particular had said, I don't want to get my family immunized. I'm just hoping everyone else does, so I don't have to do it. But that kind of thinking, it just doesn't work. And it is, for the most people, it's just a really bad flu with a bad rash, and that's what most people do. But for about 3 people out of 1,000, it leads to either death or severe brain inflammation. And when it's so communicable, and spreads so quickly, it can affect 10,000 people really quickly, and that's 30 kids that lost their life for no reason. I mean, this could have been prevented.
To see the extended interview with Scott Van Keulen and learn more about measles and vaccinations, visit our website at oncalltv.org. Wow, I mean, you know, that's the story we're hearing. People are afraid of vaccinations. They just, and they're not trusting the physicians who are saying we need to do the vaccinations. Why is that fear? I mean, maybe there's skepticism about medicine in general.
You know, I think primarily, at least in these modern times, the fear of vaccinations probably stems from the false information that these vaccines were connected to autism. And I think Dr. Van Keulen there was referring to the falsified research that came out of, it was somewhere in the western United States. The researcher actually admitted
that he lied.
After the fact that he'd lied and he'd fudged his data in an effort to get published. And so really that's been put to rest.
But and lost his license and no longer ever will practice medicine.
But I also think people are greatly impressed by what they see and what they hear in the media, and you had several Hollywood stars speaking out against vaccinations and coming forth and saying that their child's autism was related to their vaccine.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I think there are some people who are distrustful of medicine in general too. You know, they're very reluctant to take any prescription medication. Some of them will take any supplement that's recommended by the corner health food store without any
question on that
or certification or anything like that, but they don't like to take medications. So they see it as a chemical or something artificial that can't be good. But.
Well, you know, I'm skeptical of medicine. I as I've been through all of these many years, I mean, I think we've over-pharmacied people, and that we've learned that we shouldn't be using antibiotics at the drop of a hat, and we've learned and changed in every sense of the word. But you know, there is this thing called science that you base what you do on proof.
Evidence-based. Yeah.
Evidence-based.
Yeah.
And so, but
good.
people have no evidence on the avoidance of vaccination, no scientific data to say that it can be of significant danger, and yet it can be tremendously helpful in preventing terrible things that are happening. In January of 1967, 6-week-old Tammy Hill contracted measles from someone who had not been vaccinated and was infected. Her brother Nick tells her story.
My sister was born healthy. She was the first child of my mother and father. They were proud parents, and one day she got a fever. It was shortly after her 6-week checkup at the clinic. And when she developed a fever, my mother put her down in the crib during the afternoon, and my father, when he came home from work, checked on her, and she must have just stopped breathing. It happened very, very quickly that she spiked a very, very high fever. He ended up giving her CPR until the ambulance arrived, and by the time they got her to the hospital, she was developing signs and symptoms of measles encephalitis, and she was put in for several weeks into the old iron lung to be kept alive, and she unfortunately was arrested at that stage of development, and she never has never walked, she's never talked. She's had a very difficult life with a lot of complications. She was exposed not because of anyone that was known within the family. My mother, my gosh, she was overprotective of her first child, and you know, she'd hardly let people even older. And but what they did seem to find out was that she had been exposed during her checkup by someone she never even knew or met, or no one that my mom can even recall sitting in that in that clinic room. And I remember the very early days of going to visit her. She was in an institutional setting with hundreds of other children who had complications often arising from infectious diseases. The doctors didn't think she would probably make it to her 6th birthday, but she lived for 47 years. We all have the common bond that we all want to protect our children, we want to protect our family, and those who are most vulnerable in our populations and in our family situations. I would say just continue to take a very close look at the evidence from a very objective standpoint. It can be very tempting to look at some of the things in the media that you might see that may have a lot of appeal, but are not perhaps based on the facts. The facts are, my sister had a lifetime of suffering that really affected our whole family, and we can prevent this in a third world country. It might be difficult, and we still have measles that are endemic in places like India. But in the United States, we don't have to have this anymore. If we can vaccinate our children, the family members surrounding those children, we should be able to avoid diseases like this today.
And my comment is that I am a cynic. I carefully look at what we do. I change my mind all the time, but I base what I do on science. That man was correct. He had the loss of his sister, and her whole life was lost because of spread of disease that didn't have to occur. But it might have occurred in a clinic. And so I know we used to do things in an open clinic. Kids would play, everybody would meet with the same toys. It's changed now. How does it go different now, Kevin?
People check in when they get there, and if they're asked if they have symptoms, and it's mainly during a season like influenza season now, and if they do, they're issued a mask to wear. Hand sanitizer is readily available, and of course the constant advice to keep your hands clean and protect your cough and all those things to prevent the spread. But there's still only so much you can do.
There's some risks.
Yeah, there's some risk.
You know, and so many of the diseases that we catch that are seasonal are respiratory droplet, more so than contact precautions. But one of the most effective ways people can prevent spread in any situation is avoiding touching your face. That seems to be the #1 way that people transmit our viruses, especially during flu season.
So here I am. I'm listening to your kind of your voice is a little scratchy. You've just had the crud. I'm going to shake your hands, and I may have that on my hand. You know what I mean? I went to church yesterday or Sunday, and I put my hand. You know that whole thing. But I don't have to put my hands in my face. I don't have to put my hands in my nose. I don't have to rub my face, rub my eyes. I should wash my hands before I do that.
That's the message.
There it is. Hand washing, or for respiratory infection, the alcohol-based sanitizers are very effective. Not so good for diarrhea illnesses. That's going to need soap and water. But
right.
So, well, that's an important issue. But we've got other issues that we should talk about besides vaccination. We beat that one hard, and I want people to hear it. But there are other issues about lifestyle that's interesting, and people talk about diets. Now, physicians haven't traditionally been the greatest advisors about diets. I think nutritionally education has improved over the years, but
it's changed too. I mean,
things are constantly moving.
The pyramid, the nutrition pyramid based on carbohydrates and working up through proteins and fats. That's all kind of gone away.
Right.
The popular diets that are mainly protein-based, some with more or less fruits and vegetables, some are very effective. People lose weight, it's the keeping it off. You were quoting some stats earlier on the rates of maintenance that people have. It's not very good.
Not very good. Something like 30% can actually lose weight. Of that 30% can keep it off a year. And of that, like 1% can keep it off 5 years. I mean, people don't lose weight and keep it off very often. It's not to say they couldn't, but they could eat right.
I see people have a lot of success losing weight in some of these commercial diets where they have to buy, this is what you eat in the morning, and you snack bars and whatnot. They buy this food, and they maybe eat one reasonable meal a day, and they lose weight very well, but I see so many of them, you know, a year or two later, and they've gained it back.
Right back.
And
It's what I call the rubber ball phenomena. And I agree with you completely. What I never want to hear my patient tell me is, I'm going on a diet. I don't like the D word. The D word is a cuss word in my exam rooms. I'd more so rather hear them say, I'm going to make some lifestyle changes, because a diet imparts a temporary solution to a lifelong problem.
Yeah. And you know, I don't put one iota of guilt on a person who's heavy. I don't think that it is, it's there to blame. You know, and I think our whole society has done that, and medicine in particular. What I do think people have to blame is sitting on that couch. They can do something about sitting on that couch. They do not have to sit on that couch.
We've all been asked, you know, people want to know what the magic diet is to lose weight. You know, doc, can you give me a diet so I can lose weight? And I use Phil's approach. I say it can't be an isolated, structured thing too much. You got to make a lifestyle change. You got to, and I usually give them some advice on eating fewer carbohydrates, because there's too much of that in our diets nowadays, and the exercise thing. And some of them, they drink soda every day, and that's a bad thing. That's just empty calories that add up over time. I mean, granted, it's only 150 or whatever per can, but you multiply that times a week, and you know, then you end up with about a couple pounds a month at least, and it adds up and adds up.
Do you find in your practice that, like me, that a lot of people discount the number of calories that they get from liquids, from fluids?
Right, and it doesn't tell their body that they're getting calories.
That they're full, and so that we tend to discount the number of calories that we get in fluid form.
Right, I think fruit juices have been a reality that I had to learn. That, I mean, I used to drink a lot of fruit juices because it's good for you, but it didn't tell me that I was full. And so a lot of calories in fruit juices. I think it's good to have some fruit, and I like to encourage fruit and vegetables. I think it's, you know, 5 fruits a day, right? But it's not necessarily in a juice.
I think one of the most important things people need to know and get educated about is the amount of processed sugar and high fructose corn syrup that's actually in the foods they eat every day. And you know, high fructose corn syrup in particular is very diabetes producing, more so than the old cane sugar that you and I grew up with.
Right.
And it is virtually everywhere.
Fast absorbed.
It's in every cracker, it's in every cereal bar that looks healthy, whole grain, and you read the fine print, and it's full of high fructose corn syrup.
And it tells your brain, you want more of this. So you're going to eat more.
Right.
That's why they put it in there, because they want people to buy more of those things.
I have people too, they say, well, it's going to warm up soon, and then I'll start exercising, and then I'll lose weight. And I don't know what you tell them, but I say don't count on losing weight with exercise alone. It's too hard. I mean, you run or walk a mile, you lose what? It's about 100 calories. And a pound of body fat is roughly 3,500 calories.
3,500 calories.
So if you don't, so I tell them, you know, if you can shave a couple hundred calories per day at least off your diet, and then exercise a couple hundred, that 400 calories, you multiply that, then you lose weight. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight either, but same thing. You got to go for the long haul and
go for the
it'll
long
work.
Lifestyle change. A little bit of exercise is better than none.
So the worst food? What's the worst food? What's the worst food?
The worst food?
Probably saturated fats. Anything made with saturated fat.
All right. And you agree?
Probably, yeah. Something like French fries.
I think
combination of carbs and
carbs
fat.
and a lot of fat. Yeah. So here at On Call with the Prairie Doc, we're trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle. One of our own team members has created a project to encourage others to achieve optimum physical fitness.
The INGE project is a health study in essence. We're trying to group people together based on social dynamics and personality traits and see which groups have the highest success rates for successfully exercising consistently. The INGE project got started about a year ago. It began at the beginning in the spring. I saw this documentary called Escape Fire, and it just highlighted some of the health problems in America, or like related to the healthcare system. And I kind of took a step back and was like, well, you know, if our society wasn't so unhealthy, you know, there wouldn't be such pressure on the healthcare system, because a huge percentage of diseases and deaths are resulted directly from lifestyle. And so I was thinking, if we could change lifestyles, you know, that would help dramatically with improving the overall health of the country. And so the trick was thinking, well, how do you know, encourage someone to change their lifestyle, because that's what they would need to do. And it seems like social support, or your friends, family members, have a huge influence on your behavior. And so, and there's definite trends in like personality as far as people getting along. And so I was thinking, what if we could, you know, identify those traits and specifically group people together that would result in them encouraging each other and actually exercising and changing their lifestyle. And so it's kind of it's a group dynamic thing. And so we also have a system to keep track of group participation, and everyone can see the participation of everyone and see if anyone's lagging and needs additional encouragement for each week. And then also we take a personality inventory on participants, and we can go back then later and say, okay, was there any trends? Like, this group was really successful. Was it a combination? Like, was it everyone that was really similar? And did they connect to the group? Or was it like a diversity that led to higher exercising rates? Our goal is to get 90 minutes of exercise, physical activity each week with another person, because you could have something that got someone like exercising in 1 week and it's like, yay, good job. But imagine if you could get someone to get someone else to exercise. And so not only are you helping that one individual out, but they're also helping more than themselves out as well. To get involved and get started with the Inch Project, all you have to do is just go online, type in inchproject.com, and you'll be able to find it, and then from there you can sign up or sign in, you know, if you have a previous account, and it's pretty straightforward from there.
80% of the Americans do not get enough exercise. And if you want to look at growing old healthy, there is the key. Well, if you're interested in more information or to join the Inch Project, go to theinchproject.com. Inchproject.com. And look at it, think about it, join it. It's an effort to try to encourage people to keep exercising. I mean, that's one question I would have, probably the most important question we're going to have tonight, I think. How do you get people to stay exercising? My key would be to say every day.
Right. I try and tell people to make it a routine. You know, if you make it a routine and you do it every day, it becomes part of your lifestyle, and you miss it if you don't do it. We all know that exercising produces increased dopamine and endorphins in our nervous system, and we feel better. It helps our mood, it helps our energy level. It's good.
Makes your bones stronger.
You betcha.
Makes your balance better. It takes away depression.
You know, the American Heart Association recommends 150 minutes a week. And what we've classically told people is, okay, 5 30-minute periods of exercise per week, but it can come in 10-minute periods as well. And one of the easiest way to get just a little bit of physical activity is to go old school. Take the stairs, not the elevator. Walk, don't drive. Ride a bike occasionally to work. And when there's physical things to be done in the yard, push the mower instead of ride. And those things add up eventually over the course of a week. I always try to encourage people just to start with something. And I think the exercise, when we think of it, we think of a lot of sweat and a lot of side aches and a lot of time. And I just think it's way more appealing and attractive to do something for 10 minutes for a while. And when your body wants more, you'll know to go to 15.
But to do that 10 minutes every day, I like the idea of 10 minutes. Or I was pushed by a nurse who threatened me with she said, well, it's called doing it daily. Let's just do every single day, okay, one day off a week, that you get in at least a mile. Just do a mile. You can bike a mile, you can walk a mile, you can just do a mile. put in 20 bucks, and I'll give you, and I'm taking 20 bucks from every other person who's doing it, and when we're done, the ones who didn't do it every day, you know, they lose their 20 bucks, but we'll split it with you, the ones who are still exercising. So I've been doing that for like 3 or 4.
Retirement fund here.
Hey, I have gotten my 20 bucks and then some back. And the trick I did was walking to this place where I do my reading in the morning. So I exercise on Saturday and Sunday and Wednesday significantly, but I walk to this cook's kitchen at Brookings Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Good.
Yep.
And it's a half a mile there, and I do it through the winter. And then I walk home after.
That's pretty simple, but that's all it takes. I mean, the 150 minutes is moderate exercise, which is a brisk walk.
Yeah.
You can do a lesser amount of strenuous exercise, they say, and you should also mix in some resistance or some weight training too, besides aerobic, ideally. Do some of
Ideally.
that too.
The things that used to come with just modern everyday living a century ago, and still in Southeast Asia, where people have very little heart disease and do lots of physical labor on a daily basis because they don't have other options.
Yeah, they don't. We do, unfortunately, and don't get in that strengthening. I like the idea of strengthening too. And they say that if you do the strengthening, that's the best treatment for balance problems.
Prevents falls.
Yeah,
And
fall
probably
prevention.
help prevent you from breaking a hip when you're 80.
All right, so we probably beat that one just to absolute death, but I love talking about it, and I appreciate you bearing with me. And if they didn't hear that, we're going to say it again, probably every week from this group, this guy anyway. Let's talk about things different. Let's talk about the way parents are raising their children. Is there an emotional thing that parents can do for kids that will give them better wellness the rest of their life? I mean, what lifestyle thing can a parent do in raising their children? And you know, Kevin, you're the pediatric and adult doctor. You do peds. What do you see about parenting that people should realize?
Well, I think there's a balance there. It's too easy to let kids just watch TV or video games. You know, the Xbox or whatever are tremendously popular, but I think parents have to limit that. I don't say they can't let kids do it, but I think they have to make sure they know that it's it's only part of their entertainment. They need the physical activity, and they need to do it with them too. I mean, ideally interact with them, do things with them.
Get outside and play ball.
Play ball. I think take them to cultural events, social things, and like I say, give them a good balance in life.
Let's go for a hike.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phil.
You're competing with social media and that ever connection to their devices. And I think it's harder than ever to strike that balance. But I just think it comes down to rationing time with the electronics like you would anything else.
Yeah.
Rationing the amount of sweets, rationing the amount of play, rationing study time.
They say there's two things that you should give your child. One is unconditional love. I don't care what kind of a bum you may be, kid, I love you to death. And number two, discipline. No, you're turning off the computer and you're going to come and have supper with us on time, and then we're done, you go back to this. I'm the parent here. This is the deal. I love you, but this is discipline. You got to give them discipline so they know, okay, there are rules in life. You just can't do everything and anything you want.
Sure.
Agree.
You agree with those?
completely.
Yep. You got to set boundaries.
Unconditional love doesn't preclude rules.
No, it does not.
Right.
You know, if you give them all the love and everything and they can do anything, they become absolutely lost in our society. And if you give them all discipline without love, then they become bitter and hateful. So you've got to have them both. It's like the guy who's the referee on the basketball game. Oh, that I didn't mean for that ball to go out of bounds. Well, okay, this time you can keep the ball. Doesn't work. Okay, well, there's other issues about things. What about spiritual? I mean, you know, I do not want to say Christian or Muslim or any religion, you know, Jewish or whatever, to say we're not going to talk about one being better or other, but I do think that people benefit, whether they're adults or kids or anything, benefit from a spiritual base. But it doesn't mean religious. Spiritual and religion may be two different things. What's your take on those comments?
I agree. It should be part of one's social structure too. I mean, a good foundation in spirituality and a good network of friends, I think, makes for a healthier person.
Right. It's a circle of a network of people who support you during the tough times.
And that's usually part of a spirituality and religion is, you know, the group part of it and the support and mutual benefit.
I think of a big hen with wings and wrapping her loving wings around you during a tough time.
The prayer
I think
chain.
people who are ill or in dire straits probably do better having that faith-based support in addition to their family support, part of their family support.
And I have to say, one part of that I believe is music. I think the music, maybe even the church music. I think singing hymns is one of the great things it touches my spirit, no question about it. It just brings me to that center. But there's other kinds of music that help people's well-being. Any comments about that? Phil?
I listened to rock the whole way here.
You did?
And a little news.
Yeah.
I think music is uplifting. I mean, I find myself, if I'm stressed or, you know, even just whistling, or I don't sing in the shower, that's painful, but I think it helps you. You know, you read, I think it was on WebMD, you know, they have little snippets on there about different things, and one of them was about what improves mood, and there was a question about music, and this limited study, some kinds of music seem to be uplifting, but not necessarily all. But, you know, I think it differs with the individual. For you, you said singing hymns.
Yeah, there it is.
Does it for you.
And listening to my hymns does not do it for anyone else.
But I think music in general is uplifting and good for the soul.
Yeah. Let's talk about sleep. There's a lot about well-being and sleep. I mean, people talk about sleep apnea being the hidden cause of early death. The studies in Australia showing that the death rate went from 6% in people between the ages of 30 and 65 who didn't have sleep apnea, changed to 32% who had it. There's a death rate that goes with sleep apnea. How important is a good night's sleep and oxygenation during that time?
Unbelievably important. I mean, the mechanics of sleep apnea are that your vital tissues are starved of oxygen for up to hours per night. People wake up thinking that they've had a full night's rest and they actually haven't had restorative sleep.
I think that we need that. I mean, it's a part of our central brain, the rest that comes with sleep.
Right, to recharge. But not everybody that doesn't sleep enough has sleep apnea either. I mean,
that's true.
you know, we should get, you know, probably an absolute minimum of 6 hours a night, but generally shoot for 8 is what's recommended of good sleep. You know, the hallmark of sleep apnea is sleeping all night but still not being rested. You know, you feel tired all day. That's a pretty common thing. I know Phil and I, if we had a buck for everybody that said they were tired all the time, we'd be retired by now too. But it is what makes up sleep apnea. You know, that's a disease that's really become a lot better known in our practice years. I mean, when our earlier practice years, and Philip too probably, he's a little younger than us, but used to be just obesely, you know, greatly overweight people were a concern for sleep apnea, but we find that it's not necessarily tied to that body habitus, and other people have it, and you got to ask the right questions and
do the right tests.
Do the right tests.
It used to be the only treatment we had was tracheostomy. You just give them a tracheostomy, and then they could sleep all right at night. And it made huge difference. I had a heart failure guy who'd tip into failure. He took out his tracheostomy. You know, he'd come in absolute complete failure because it had closed off, and he had sleep apnea again. It truly did kill him in the end, the sleep apnea.
That's a big difference.
There's other things about stresses. in life. I know of a lot of people who come in and they say, I'm just stressed to the max, and you can see they've had deaths in their family, they've got financial burdens that are happening, their husband has got a problem with alcohol or with gambling or something that's, I mean, the stresses in life. How can we deal with stresses? What do you guys do with people who come in with that kind of a thing?
Well, we've talked about exercise a lot, but it's one of the more fundamental things I always recommend for control of stress. And you know, we think of stress, it's just kind of this intangible thing that we can't wrap our arms around, but the real physical attributes of stress are that it makes you overproduce adrenaline. Cortisol is an adrenaline type of hormone, and when you overproduce those hormones, your blood pressure rises. You tend to have a racing heart, maybe have chest palpitations. Even hair loss can be associated with that. And so stress, whether it be emotional, work-related, and even good forms of stress, can shorten your life by biochemically.
Well, what do you mean good forms of stress?
Well, a new job that was a pay raise, for instance, can come with new responsibilities, can be equally stressful as loss of a loved one, for instance, in terms of your biochemistry.
I think the key is in trying to coach people in dealing with stress. I mean, everybody has stress. There's always something going on in life, but for some people, stress is not, you know, something simple. You know, they got cut off on the freeway or something, and it bugs them for half a day. So I think part of it's coping with stress. Stress is always going to be there. Yeah, granted, sometimes you get a curveball in life and it's not fun, but it's how you deal with it, I think, that makes a difference. That's where the network of friends and support makes a difference, I think.
And the lifestyle.
Yeah,
people who exercise and get enough sleep deal with that stress much more effectively than the next person. And stress is completely subjective. The guy cutting him off in traffic might aggravate him and not me, for instance.
Right. I always think about that movie with, what's his name, the Groundhog Day movie, Bill Murray. And so it took him, you know, a lifetime of Groundhog Day to get it right. But he finally got it just right. Yeah. And what did he do? I mean, it was a lesson for me. I mean, it was one of those aha, wow, you know what? It's a crappy day for him. I mean, this happened, he figured out how to fix that. He ended up hugging the insurance salesman and catching the little boy who fell out of the tree and learning how to play the piano. And I mean, just...
And he got the girl in the end.
And got the girl in the end. Yeah. But the point is that, I mean, we can handle these things in many, many different ways.
Right.
What is the way we can do it to make it work? You know what I mean? There's other things. We should talk about cigarette smoking. It's a lifestyle choice, but it's very addictive. How do you handle people who are smoking and not be judgmental? Because I automatically find myself being judgmental and try not to be. It doesn't seem to help. What do you do to help people quit?
I think one of the most important things we can do as healthcare providers is tell our patients that we understand how addictive it must be. Having not been addicted to it myself, there's studies to show that nicotine is in some respects as addictive as cocaine and heroin. Yeah. And because it carries a much different social stigmata, we don't put that on a level playing field, but it's an extremely addictive substance.
Yeah.
And I think coming to an understanding with our patients about that first and foremost is really important. I mean, it's very easy to sit there in the exam room and look at the physician, I think, and say to yourself, you wouldn't know. You've not been addicted to cigarettes before.
Right. Yeah. Kevin, your comment? I think that's really...
You have to acknowledge that it's difficult to quit, but there are ways we can help and outline those and lay them out for the patient.
The patches, the Wellbutrin.
Yeah, there's medication. You know, the state has a program where you can get some of those things for free, and they'll do some coaching for you. There are options out there. You know, society's taxing it and making it financially really disadvantageous to continue too. So do
See the
yourself a
light.
favor. Yeah.
You know it's addictive when people will pay what they're paying for cigarettes.
So 15 seconds, answer meaning and purpose of life, well-being. What's the answer?
Balance.
Yeah.
Balance it.
Run your life like a marathon, not a sprint. Easier said than done.
Yeah. Kevin, 20 seconds.
I'd agree. I think balance is the key to everything. I think stay active.
Right.
We talked about that earlier.
I think so too. Activity and realize the value of friendships.
Yeah.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this.
Health Partners presents Home Flu Remedies. History suggests there are several methodologies to beat the flu bug. There's sweat therapy, leech therapy, snake therapy, and of course the ever popular shock therapy.
Want to know the best way to beat the flu bug? Get vaccinated. With the flu bug still hanging around, it's not too late.
A 92-year-old retired college professor patient of mine who seems significantly younger than his stated age walks 1.5 miles every day. He said to me on his own one time, when you exercise every day, you feel so much better. Why don't people do it? I think part of the problem is that getting started hurts a little, but maybe it's also because our motives are misplaced. In a recent study of more than 10,000 middle-aged to older men over a 12-year period of time, researchers discovered that weight training helped reduce abdominal fat, while aerobic exercise did best with overall weight control. Their conclusion, a combination of weight training and aerobic exercise makes a person look best. What I didn't like about that research was, once again, the study seems to speak to appearance, how a person looks in the mirror, rather than the quality of life. In this colder, darker wintertime after holiday season, as the new year begins, we find ourselves reassessing the errors of the past and making resolutions to change. After a year of inactivity and a month of holiday treats and celebration, too many of us resolve, I've got to lose weight. And during this season, almost every magazine advertises methods to lose weight and look better with a pill or a supplement or an easy trick. Not only are these profit-driven, dishonest scams playing on our desires to be something we're not, the real truth is they don't work. Even a legitimate plan for eating correctly and exercising reasonably is destined to cause sustained weight loss in only a very few. Less than 10% over 1 year, less than 1% over 5 years. Indeed, it is. If it's your intent simply to lose weight, you are destined to be disappointed. Of course, it's important to eat a balanced diet, avoiding excessive quantities, especially empty carbohydrates. But our goal should be to feel better and to be healthier rather than simply to look thinner. And I think the key to this treasure is with exercise. To that end, all of us should make a resolution to get started. Every day should not end without about 30 minutes of exercise of some kind. Start with a walk. It hurts a little to get going, but then when you exercise every day, you feel so much better. So we've had an opportunity to talk about all these lifestyle things. I'd love to hear a story from each of you. Oh, I got to go to a wrap. This brings us to the end of our show this evening. I sincerely thank our fantastic guests, Kevin Bjordahl of the Avera Medical Group in Millbank and Phil Meyer of the Avera Medical Group in Pierre. We appreciate it so much. If you've not gotten your flu shot yet, call your healthcare provider and make an appointment to get the flu vaccine. It's not too late. February is often the biggest month for flu in this part of the world, so we're not out of the woods yet. The 18th century French writer Voltaire told us, God give us the gift of life. It is up to us to give ourselves the gift of living well. And until next time, stay healthy out there, people.
Nationally, between 13 and 27% of all emergency room visits are for non-urgent conditions, leading to about $4.4 billion extra in additional health care costs. What is an ER for? When should you go there? And what are your other choices? Next time on Call with the Prairie Doc.
Funding for On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided in part by
Avera is a proud sponsor of On Call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Larson Manufacturing is proud to support On-Call Television as it continues to open doors for important medical information.
and by the South Dakota Foundation for Medical Care, the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for South Dakota. Additional funding is provided by Aberdeen Asthma and Allergy, Brookings Health System, Dr. Mark Bubak with Dakota Allergy and Asthma, Dakota Care, Dakota Dermatology, the Orthopedic Institute, Physicians Care Sanford Clinic Community Service Committee, and Swiftel Communications. Closed captioning for On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided by the generous support of Avera, Brookings Health System, and Fishbach Financial Corporation.